All right, got it.
Right, I'm going to. Alrighty.
Okay, live.
All right, it's preparing. Oh, you're live.
We're good? Hey. Hi guys, welcome to Hot Topic Tuesday. Trish and April here. Okay, new month, February. We talked all about gut health last month. So this month we are transitioning to talk about hormones. Gosh, lots of functions in the body, lots of importance. We're kind of kicking off this week focusing on female hormones. And then throughout the rest of the month, we will deep dive into all kinds of hormone related topics. But we are going to talk about, so today, if you happen to catch anything on social, we were talking about estrogen. So we could just kind of want to give you some estrogen basics today, and, talk about the role in the body and just some other things. And, we'll kind of finishing out, progesterone and testosterone and stuff in the next videos. But I'm going to start. So estrogen's role in the body. So estrogen is a super, super important hormone to females. It's responsible for the development of our sex characteristics, breast. Helps regulate our menstrual cycle. Estrogen is going to be a little bit more dominant in our follicular phase of our cycle, which is that first half. And actually, a lot of people that aren't sure about how their cycle's functioning, they'll kind of say, oh, I feel like I feel kind of more energy during that time, or I feel a little bit better. And estrogen can definitely do that. It can definitely have you feeling a little bit more energized. Some people may find that training is easier during that time. Resiliency to stress is easier. And, even sticking to your nutrition plan can be easier during the higher estrogen time if everything's kind of, balanced and functioning as it should with progesterone. Um, strong bones. Estrogen is very important to help our bone health. In fact, one of my first big presentations that I did in college, I went to school for, nutrition major. I did it on the female athlete triad, which is, some female athletes develop amenorrhea, they lose their cycles, and how that related to bone health and osteoporosis. So that, help with estrogen to bone health has been kind of ingrained in my brain for a very long time. Another thing that estrogen affects is our mood and our concentration. And those of us that are kind of heading into perimenopause and menopause, as estrogen is starting to decline, we are noticing maybe a lack of focus, a lack of concentration, and some irritability, possibly. So that can definitely happen too. So that's another reason why some women will report feeling a little bit better, maybe having a little bit better emotional regulation in like that first half of the cycle at times too. And then the last thing is it does help hydrate our skin. April, speaking of that, have you seen the trend? And I think it's like not really just a trend, like legit, where estrogen kind of is coming into skincare and face creams.
I
Like
know.
I've seen some advertisements for it for sure. And I would try it for sure. I think it's probably super legit because one of the things that they'll do if anybody has like vaginal dryness or, things you can put topical estrogen there and it kind of helps plump and
Yeah.
pinken that area up again and bring some life back to it. So I could definitely see where it could help our faces.
Yes, agree, agree. Only if we were menopausal, because if you're
Yeah.
not also, you don't want to add estrogen.
Yeah, you may not need, yeah, definitely.
Yes.
This
You
is
start
all
growing a beard.
anti-aging. Yeah, we don't need like, all the like 13-year-olds that are all on the drunk elephant train are gonna see that and start we don't need that.
Agreed.
Only if you're in the anti-aging world. But okay, go ahead and you can
So
take over.
the only thing I was gonna say when you were talking about, how it can affect mood and whatever, I've always joked that estrogen is the confidence hormone. When estrogen's higher, we tend to have more confidence. We actually tend to shop more. We tend like spend money. We tend to shop more, spend money when estrogen's high. Like, as it relates to our menstrual cycle, if you know the different phases of the menstrual cycle where estrogen's dominant and then progesterone's dominant. But when estrogen's dominant, we have more energy, we're happier, we're more confident, we tend to spend more money. And then when progesterone is dominant, we tend to be more tired, we tend to be more introverted, more reclusive. And I truly think it's because we're bloated and retaining water. But
Yeah.
anyway, anybody wants to be out with anybody with like that.
Exactly. And I guess also like evolutionary speaking, if you get pregnant, and that second part of your cycle, you're, now fostering a baby and like, building all those cells, like you're going to go into more of a like relax, more kind of maybe nesting mode. So even though that
Exactly.
may not happen, I think our body still like takes on those roles.
Agree. And which kind of, you're talking about the pregnancy, which kind of leads into the three different types of estrogen. The three different types of estrogen, which a lot of times, like majority of the time, estradiol is the most important because I mean they all play a role, but estradiol is the most predominant estrogen, like especially in females. Estrone is predominant during menopause, and then estriol is the most abundant estrogen during pregnancy. You may have gotten a hormone test before, and depending on your doctor or the type of test, you saw the different types of estrogen, and you're like, oh my God, what is this? Why? Whatever. But, the one that most women, measure and want to ensure that is in balance is going to be estradiol. Um, with that being said, there are factors that can affect estrogen levels, and those are, of course, age. Estrogen's going to change throughout, our life phases. So, when we're younger, it's going to be higher, and as we start entering into perimenopause, it's going to start fluctuating and start lowering. And then when we go through menopause, estrogen declines, substantially. Lifestyle factors, diet, exercise, and stress management all play a role in estrogen. They play a role in hormone balance as a whole, but they play a role in estrogen balance. Environmental influences, so like chemical exposure, pollutions, like environmental pollution, pollutants from food like pesticides. The endocrine disruptors, so like plastics, things like that, can all affect your estrogen levels. And then also factors like PCOS, medical conditions like PCOS, obesity, and thyroid disorders all, have estrogen plays a role in all of those. Like typically PCOS is someone that is, estrogen dominant, so estrogen plays a role in medical disorders as well. So, so it's a super important hormone. And a lot of times we think of estrogen as the female hormone, but men actually have estrogen as well. Men have estrogen as well. They just don't have as much or need as much as we do. And like with males, when they tend to be estrogen dominant, you'll notice like they will tend to have like breasts. So they'll like grow breasts and tend to have more belly fat because they're supposed to have estrogen, but not a lot of estrogen, type thing. So, and the symptoms of estrogen imbalance are Trish.
All right. So if you are suspecting you have any kind of estrogen imbalance, you may be experiencing some things like irregular periods. If you're still menstruating and you're having irregular periods, that could be a symptom of estrogen balance for sure. Hot flashes, that would maybe be affecting more into that perimenopause, menopausal woman. But hot flashes, definitely another symptom. Mood swings, that's a big one. We talked about that earlier, but and honestly, I've never like fully shared like my story of actually going on HRT, and one day I will. But one of the biggest reasons when I walked into the office, I was like, my biggest symptom is focus issues and I want to murder people. So can if you can help with that. And that ended up being like a huge symptom of perimenopause and estrogen being on the low side. It was also out of balance with progesterone. Whole longer story. You may be having changes in your libido. A lot of times, estrogen imbalances can also lead to some vaginal dryness, which could be making, sex uncomfortable too, which could also affect your libido for sure. And hair loss. So those are can be all signs and symptoms. And obviously the big one that, we'll see a lot are struggles with fat loss resistance, weight gain, especially if you're experiencing more in like the abdominal area around the hip, breast, chest area. We'll see a lot, even, into the back. So we'll see a lot of, fat loss resistance if estrogen's off balance.
Yes, and insomnia. Like I gotta add in.
Yes. Oh gosh, I had that one written down and I skipped it. That's a
That
big
is
one too. And that can lead to mood. You see how they all interconnect? Like if you're not
exactly.
sleeping at night and then you're crabby and then obviously you're not going to focus very well. So all of those are definitely
I
related.
started to say for me, it has been, which it's better now. I changed my magnesium, and that's been so impactful. Just the different type of magnesium, and that's for another episode. But anyway, insomnia, which in turn leads to those symptoms of wanting to murder people, like the rage. Just
Yes,
like
it was so bad.
I broke down to my husband multiple times and like had like a breakdown and been in tears of like, you
Yeah.
can possibly understand. Like this has been months of no sleep and blah blah blah. Anyway, I think they think we're all insane. So
Oh yeah, definitely. And I
um
feel like if I reflect back to when my cycle was probably very, normal for me being like a lot younger, I do recall because I did like some endurance races. So I remember one time looking it up because I trained so hard for this one race and I was going to be like days into my period and I was like, "Oh no, you're thinking that's horrible." And I was going to be past the point where, there was like heaviness and crampiness and stuff. So I remember, and that's the very first time I came across like Stacy Sims stuff, and she's got some really good content on this, where she's like, actually, you're in the best phase ever. And I don't know if it was mental or true, but I remember having like a really good race, but that stuck with me. Kind of just going into, and I do remember now if I like think back, like having the heightened energy, kind of all those things you said, where it makes you confident.
yeah, exactly. So natural ways to support estrogen. So of course, we got to touch on the natural ways first. Obviously, if there are, if you try the natural ways and it's still not helping, you can, seek the advice of your doctor or a naturopath to, basically to try to, go more of the HRT method, which Trish and I have no qualms about that. Like, I am all for taking a natural approach and using herbals and things like that, when you can. But then sometimes there's a point where sometimes you just need to be a little more specific, and if that works for you, then I am a big proponent of it. But ways to support estrogen balance naturally, obviously, diet, nutritious diet rich in fruits, vegetables, fiber, lean protein, phytoestrogen containing foods. I think I've done quite a few nutrition lives about the phytoestrogen containing foods that will actually help support us in menopause. Those would be like cruciferous veggies, flax seeds, soy. Be leery. Soy, I get these questions probably twice a week in regards to soy. Like, what are your thoughts on soy? As long as you don't have a history of an estrogen dominant cancer, like breast cancer or things like that, or a hereditary gene or hereditary issue with that, soy is fine in moderation. I think it's fine. And it actually can help mimic phytoestrogen foods. What they do is they mimic estrogen in the body. So when you've gone through menopause and estrogen is pretty much like almost non-existent, then that will actually mimic estrogen in the body and, and help give, the energy and, you know, relieve the vaginal dryness and help with insomnia and all that good stuff. Regular exercise and physical activity is another one. Stress management techniques such as meditation or yoga. Now, it couldn't be a Facebook Live if we didn't mention about stress management or reducing stress. And we've talked about it before. We had another live, which I don't think we recorded it, but about cortisol. When stress is high, when cortisol is high, which cortisol gets a bad rap, we need it. But when cortisol is chronically elevated, all of our sex hormones are going to be shunning. So when cortisol is high, the body's not going to produce the estrogen, or it's not going to produce the progesterone. Basically, they have to take a backseat to everything. That is why, it is so, so important to practice these stress management techniques, deep breathing exercises, self-care. We're all about self-care, all those little things to help reduce stress, because we're never, ever, ever going to have a life without stress. It's just a matter of how do we perceive it and how do we manage it, and we can't just constantly keep sweeping things under the rug and think it's not going to catch up, because it's going to catch up. Eventually, that rug's just going to have a big pile and we're going to have to address it. Avoiding exposure to endocrine disrupting chemicals. So, again, avoiding plastics, looking at your cosmetics and household products. So, looking at things, we've talked about it before. You can download the Yuka app or the EWG app and, and scan like household products and cosmetics. I try to do, like, I did an overhaul of most of my cosmetics. I'm probably about 90-10. There are some things that just aren't the same. And sometimes doing, something, taking a big jump is better than nothing, in my opinion. And also herbal supplements and natural remedies. I do want to add in that if you do suspect that you have estrogen dominance, so like you're like growing facial hair, you're having like really, really heavy periods, like clotting, the horrible cramps, around your menstrual cycle. If you suspect that you have that, then I would highly look into how is your liver doing, because it may be an issue that your liver's overburdened through, environmental pollutants, toxins, chemicals, toxins from your food, or just detoxification may be an issue in general. And we can do another, quick Facebook Live on that, but, it may actually be that's the source rather. So I will say, if you
You people that are chronically constipated. That's your first clue in right there.
100%,
So
because
that if you're like, I don't know if my liver is clogged and you haven't pooped in 4 days, then we've got problems.
exactly. And that's the thing, is that when the liver is overburdened, the liver is responsible for filtering out all of those unused hormones. So our bodies are going to create those sex hormones and make them, and then it's going to use what it needs. But then, the liver is responsible for discarding the ones that haven't been used. So if the liver's kind of overburdened and it's kind of backed up, then it's not going to be discarding those excess hormones. So in turn, we're going to start feeling symptoms, or we're going to actually, even if we tested our hormones, we're going to have, symptoms and exhibit excess estrogen, which is not good. Like with everything, estrogen, we said it's the confidence hormone, gives you energy, all that good stuff, but too much of anything is never good. So anyway, hopefully this was helpful. Next week, we will have another deep dive on another hormone. So follow us then. And until then, y'all have a good week. And if you have any questions, reach out to us on social media. And yeah, we are excited to continue our deep dive of hormones. Y'all have a great week.
Thank you.